Hey everybody, this is Pierre Quinn and you're listening to the Leading While Green podcast, where my mission is to help you live, learn, and lead with confidence. On today's episode number 6, we're going to talk about swimming, my recent trip to Atlanta for a speaking engagement, Toys R Us versus McDonald's, the power of challenges, the struggle between over-delivering and under-promising, a book that I'm reading. Of course, we're going to talk about the revision conference, and we'll chat about things that matter. So listen up. So I really want to start this conversation today with things that matter. The world is just experiencing a tremendous amount of devastation right now. There's the earthquake that happened in Mexico after they had an earthquake some weeks past. There's Houston that's still recovering from the hurricane. There's Florida and their hurricane recovery efforts. There are the islands of the Caribbean that have just been completely devastated by the weather. And then there's this talk of more turbulent weather to come. And people are really looking at how they're going to respond to what's coming down the pike. And sometimes it's a shock to us. You know, many of you who listen to this podcast, you're in pursuit of something. You serve in some leadership capacity. You're an entrepreneur. You work in the church space, the ministry space. You're looking to get a business off the ground or change jobs or start an initiative. And there are times when we're working so hard, when we're pushing so hard, that we lose sight of things that matter. We lose sight of the important things. We lose sight of the things that are really supposed to make the biggest difference in our lives. And it takes sometimes a tragic situation for you to come back to focus. We see this a lot of times in our families when someone dies or when someone gets into an accident. It's a tough reminder that many of the things that we're focusing on, or much of where we put our efforts in the grand scheme of things, don't account for much. So for the individuals in let's take Puerto Rico, for instance, who are challenged by the aftermath of the hurricane, they're looking at survival. They're looking at food and water. They're looking at a place to lay their head at night. And really, when push comes to shove, it's a call to get back to basics. And for us, maybe you're not in a part of the world, or maybe you don't have family in a part of the world that's facing devastation right now. And sometimes it's really easy for us to be jaded by not feeling like we have a direct connection to what's going on in some of these tough places. But let a tragedy strike you in your personal life. Let someone die, or someone get sick, or someone lose a job, or maybe you get sick or lose a job, or something difficult happens to you. And it has this uncanny ability for some of us, if we're willing, to bring us back to center. And it's really a call for us to focus on the relationships that matter the most, on the conversations that matter the most. I was watching on social media, and people were desperately trying to get in contact with their friends and relatives in parts of the world where communication is severely limited. And I wonder, when I was watching the news reports and seeing things come up on my timeline, I wonder how many of those conversations were out of desperation that was exacerbated by the fact that you haven't talked to them in a long time. You haven't built a bridge of relationships. You haven't been in constant communication and encouraging. And then when something tragic happens, you're rushing to try to connect. And I know it happens to a lot of us. Sometimes time and distance and work and life separate us from the things that matter most, and we have to try to fight to stay connected. So if you have a friend or family member, someone close to you who's in a part of the world that's being ravaged, being devastated right now, we're praying for you. We're praying that they get the help and support and comfort that they need. We're praying that they're in a place where they could rebuild. If you've lost a loved one tragically, we're sorry. and our hearts, those who are on my team, our hearts really go out to you as you face this time of grief. If this doesn't apply to you, you don't know anyone that's in a place that's been devastated by weather, I simply ask that you make some effort to help, some effort to reach out, some effort to donate to the agencies that we know are actually doing work and helping people on the ground, or even just encouraging those, offering some words of comfort to those who are going through a difficult time right now. And just remember the stuff that matters. Listen, at the end of the day, you can build a great business. You can get out of debt. You can have an awesome platform. You can develop an impacting ministry. You can do all of these things. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the relationships and connections that make life worth it, then you've missed out on something. Still tough to think about. So I just want to encourage you as you're listening to this podcast or even afterwards that you reach out. I know some of you on your timeline have people who are going through difficult times, and don't just type in the comment section. Pick up the phone and call them and offer some encouragement to them as they move along. Speaking of encouragement, I was swimming this week. I wasn't able to make it to my formalized lessons, but I did jump in a pool not too far, maybe about 10, 15 minutes from my house. And this was strange. Now, earlier in the week, I had been in the pool in Georgia. I was there for a speaking engagement, and I'll get to that in a second. But I went to the pool on Wednesday. Wednesday is a normal day for my swimming lessons, and I wasn't able to make it to my lesson, but I was able to make it to the pool. And I find myself being a bit self-conscious in the pool. Now, this pool had, if I remember correctly, 5 or 6 lanes. And in the shallow end, it was about 4 feet 6 inches. In the deep end, it was close to 9 feet. And I was like, I'm standing far away from that. That's a different level than what I'm on. I'm going to stay closer to the 5 feet section of the pool. And they had this common area where you could swim. And I found myself, and there weren't a lot of people at the pool at all. There was some people doing some aqua aerobics, some individuals doing some lap swim, but less than 10 people in the pool at the time. And I found myself being real subconscious, wondering what people were saying as they were looking at me practicing the few skills that I had learned up to that point. And I think I've spent about 45 minutes of my time in the pool just wrestling with the anxiety of thinking about maybe people are looking at me, maybe they're watching, maybe they're making comments. And it wasn't until about 35 minutes of being in the pool that I just said to myself, hey, either you're going to just give it all you got for the time that you have left and swim, or you're not. Either you're going to be worried about what everybody's saying about you, or you're not. And the truth is, the more you worry about what people are saying, and in reality, they probably weren't thinking about me at all, but the more you worry about what people are saying, it actually gets in the way from what you're trying to do and trying to accomplish. So I think I had about 20 good minutes of just focusing on the things my coach had taught me. But the opinions of other people can really handcuff you and immobilize you if you let them just hold you in place. And I know, on social media, everyone has a comment about anything and everything. And there are just times where you have to shut off comments, times where you have to close computer, where you have to put down the phone, where you just have to walk away and just concentrate on what you're being called to do, on the task at hand, and push forward. Because there will always be a naysayer. There will always be a critic. There will always be a skeptic. There will always be someone with an opinion. But truthfully, in addition, there are less people talking about you in a negative way than you think. There are less people critiquing you than you think. And if you focus on those individuals, then that takes time and energy away from what you were supposed to be doing. I had a similar experience earlier in the week in Georgia, where I was close to Atlanta for a speaking engagement, and I was at a hotel residence inn. a decent hotel, and there was a pool at the Residence Inn. And this pool, it's Georgia, so the climate was a little different than it is here in the DC metro area. Outdoor pool. It was two guys at the pool just hanging out, and it was me. And then the way the pool is set up, that you can look out your window if in the hotel and look down into the pool. So wrestling a little bit with, man, maybe people are watching me. What am I going to be doing? And then after about 10 minutes, and I'm trying to figure out the difference between how I was able to push past faster at the pool in Georgia, to push past faster and swim, and why I wrestle with so much maybe anxiety or consternation in the pool here close to my house. But pushed through either way. Enjoyed being in Atlanta for a speaking engagement. I was with an organization called Message Magazine, which is actually the oldest African-American Christian magazine, oldest African-American Christian publication in the U.S. So it was good. I was talking to them about culture and leadership and what moves our hearts today. And I just want to counsel you and challenge you. Be nice to people. Really be nice to people, because you never know who you're going to meet down the road. Now, at the event, at the session, there was an individual who walked into the room who I had met maybe 7 years ago. I didn't remind him that we had met 7 years ago. But about 7 years ago, there were conversations about me working with him in his capacity. And we had a conversation about it. It was a short conversation. He asked me one or two questions, and he kind of just shrugged me off. And the person who was instrumental in introducing us really tried to take up for him and just trying to take away from the fact that in the conversation, I was shrugged off based on my response. But I didn't take it to heart. After having taught for so many years, after having been in a corporate environment, after having traveled the world, you learn, how to deal with people and how to respond to people. So I didn't take it to heart. But then I saw this individual 7 years later at an event, and he was there. He was part of the event, and I was there as a presenter at the event. And I think somewhere during the event, it clicked in his head that we had met 7 years ago, and that he had kind of shrugged me off. Now, I didn't bring it to his attention. I didn't throw anything in his face. I wasn't interested in doing that. It was just a reminder to me personally that you need to be very careful in how you treat people, and how you treat people, especially individuals who you feel like at the moment or at the time can't do anything for you, who offer no benefit to you. Sometimes we look down on people based on our perception of their external value. And we need to be careful about that. And I remember a leader saying to me several years ago, the same people you step on the way up, on the trajectory of your success as you're climbing different ladders, the same people you step on going up will be the same people you have to meet on the way down. Now, speaking of down, how do you guys feel about this Toys R Us thing? I'd love to hear your comments on this. You can put them on my Facebook page, Mr. Pierre Quinn, or on the comment section under my blog where my podcast will be posted, in addition to listening to it on iTunes. Speaking of which, guys, I really need the reviews. Many of you have encouraged and said, we appreciate the content of the podcast. This is great. It's encouraging. It's supportive. We like the topics that you share. And hey, not asking for much, just asking for you to go on iTunes, Leading While Green podcast on iTunes, and leave me a review. 5s are great. Leave some comments on there. Encourage people to listen, share, so that other people can get the same encouragement that you're feeling, that you're experiencing. But we're talking about Toys R Us and going down. Toys R Us bankruptcy, y'all. Toys R Us was big part of my childhood. Toys R Us is in the bankruptcy situation. And I was looking at Toys R Us, and I've taken my kids to Toys R Us so many times over the years, many times just on sightseeing trips because we weren't getting anything. But that Toys R Us experience, but then to hear that they're going out of business, they're filed for bankruptcy. It makes sense to me because watching Toys R Us over the years, Toys R Us never pivoted. They never made that pivot. They never made that strong transition to a really strong online platform. They never made that pivot to creating Toys R Us into an experience, not just a building with toys, but an experience so that when kids come into Toys R Us, they're coming for the experience, and the experience brings them back, not just toys, because every place has toys. They never made the pivot of transitioning their branding. It's just a lot that didn't go well for Toys R Us. Now, here's the excuse. They say online retailers put them out of business. They can't compete with Amazon. They can't compete with Walmart. They can't compete with the online game. And the truth is, there's enough of a market share. There's enough of a market share for you not necessarily to be in a place where you're trying to make or trying to create heavy competition, but there's enough for you to get your slice of the pie. But that slice of the pie only comes as you change, as you pivot, as you make the decisions necessary to stay relevant. This is so important, especially for those of us in the leadership space. The organization that you're working with has to continue to stay relevant. And if it does not stay relevant, then there's no more use for the organization. Toys R Us has lost the ability to stay relevant. Their branding was the same. They didn't change their experience. They were just a huge place with a whole bunch of toys. And it has to be more than that. Now the thought process is the same. They think, well, kids love toys, and every Christmas we'll be able to make enough money to stay open all year. And that's how many retailers work. They pick 1 or 2 times a year where they make the bulk of their money, and that allows them to ride out the rest of the year. But you can't take people for granted. You can't say, well, kids need toys, so they got to come to us. Nope. Options. There's a lot of options out there. And when you don't pivot, when you don't work on your experience, Toys R Us could have been known for the place with the best experience for kids, even if the toys were still overpriced, because you can go to Walmart and get the same thing. Toys R Us could have killed it in the area of customer service. They could have set up a scenario where we're going to focus so much on making sure the young people who come into Toys R Us have an amazing time. If they have an amazing time, their parents will be satisfied, and the parents are the ones with the money. The parents will open up their pocketbooks a bit more if their kids have a great experience. And it's all about being able to pivot, and it's all about being relevant. And that's really important. In the areas that you're working with on the teams, with the teams that you're working on, ask yourself, and this was a question even that I was asking Message Magazine when I was in Georgia. We have to ask ourselves, where are the opportunities for us to continue to be relevant, or to pivot and be relevant where we have not been relevant before? And as long as you can maintain a sense of relevancy, then there will always be a call for the things that you offer. So I was having a conversation with my mastermind group that I'm a part of. And I think it's the previous episode where I talk about the importance of a mastermind group. But in my group, there's a handful of us, and we're pushing each other. We're encouraging each other. And now the guys are on this health thing, this health kick. Now, some of us in the group are super healthy. Some of us in the group struggle with health, but we're kind of all in this together. So someone said, hey, let's work on a health challenge, health project, health something. Or I think it was one of our goals to work on our health. And then somebody else in the group said, hey, he's a physical therapist. He says, hey, one of my clients introduced me to this push-up challenge, 100pushups.com. And you can see that in the show notes, 100pushups.com. And in about 7 weeks, you'll be able to do 100 push-ups as you walk through this program. And then someone said, hey, why don't we do this thing together? And then peer pressure set in, and I find myself being a part of the 100 push-ups challenge. And the way that it works with our particular mastermind is that you can't just say you're doing 100 push-ups. You have to record yourself doing the push-ups and send them to the other people in the mastermind group as a part of accountability. It's an accountability thing. And this is really important because I've said this before. I've said this in corporate settings and nonprofit settings and in faith-based settings, that you will let yourself off the hook all the time. You will make a promise to yourself that you're going to do something, but then when you're too tired or too frustrated or too angry or too annoyed, you'll give yourself any excuse not to do the thing that you've committed to doing. So it's great to have accountability. It's great to have support. It's great to have encouragement. And I'm grateful to my mastermind group and the band of brothers that we have and pushing each other. And after this podcast, I got to make sure to do my push-ups for today and send it to my group. Accountability is one of the things that we're going to be talking about at the Revision Conference, Baltimore, Maryland, October 29th. We want to see you in the building. This is going to be a great event. We had the first one at Bowie State University in July. Fantastic reviews from the people who attended, and everyone said, when are you going to do it again? So we're doing it again, October 29th. Baltimore, Maryland, University of Maryland, Baltimore campus. We want to see you in the building. Here's how you register. Revision 2017 revision2017.eventbrite.com. I'll put this in the show notes too. revision2017.eventbrite.com. And if you use the promo code October, you'll get a nice discount, and that's only going to be in effect until the 1st of October. So you want to check that out. Register your team. We're trying to pack the place. Bring your team, bring your squad, bring your spouse, if you're on a leadership team, bring them, bring the volunteer staff that you work with, as we talk about the areas of our lives that we are being called to dream about, to imagine, to reimagine, and to plan again. And we promise it won't just be motivation and inspiration. It'll be practical steps that you can take to live out the change that you're being called to make and live up to your God-given talents and abilities and make the difference that you need to make. Now, this idea of the Revision Conference came out of just a personal conversation, a conversation that I was having with myself about the direction of my life. I started reading this book by Dr. Miles Monroe called The Principles and Power of Vision. Started reading this book about a week ago. And Dr. Miles Monroe in the book talks about this idea that if you don't have a vision, you're going to be wandering aimlessly through life, and you're just going to be going in the direction that everybody else wants you to go. So about a year ago, I just started brainstorming and started talking about, okay, at this age, at 36, how do I see life for the next 10 to 15 years? And trying to paint a vivid picture of the future, a vivid picture of the future reality based on my experiences in the past, but based on the opportunities in the present, and then the God-given talent and skills and strength, which provides me with the opportunity to shape the future. And I came up with this idea of the Revision Conference. It started off as a devotional book, a teaching series from my church, and then morphed into a conference with the help of some of my very good friends. And one of the things that we talk about in the conference that was underscored and reinforced by the book that I'm reading by Miles Monroe that I'll put in the show notes, The Principles and Power of Vision, is that you need a vision. You need a picture, a vivid picture of a future reality, and that many of us wander through life just reacting to life. We're just responding to life. We don't have a picture of how we want things to be, and we're just wandering aimlessly, and it's really tearing us down because we'll end up at a midlife crisis somewhere in our mid-40s, and we look back and we ask, what have we accomplished? Or maybe if we're older than 40 and we're still wrestling with what have we accomplished, missing out on the fact that there is still time for you to live out a God-given vision with God-granted strength. So I just really want to encourage you not just to come to the Revision Conference. We really want to see you there if you live in the DMV area. But I also want you to take some time and work on a personal vision. Get this book, The Principles and Power of Vision by Dr. Miles Monroe. Check out Andy Stanley's book, Making Vision Stick. And I'll put that in the show notes as well, because you need to begin not just having goals, but painting a vivid picture of the future. And it's really important to do that for legacy's sake, for the people who are watching you, for those who look up to you, for those that you are leading, from those who get encouragement from you. It's important. It's important to make that decision and to live out a compelling vision. Speaking of vision, I wonder what MoviePass was thinking. If you haven't heard of MoviePass, this MoviePass idea was inspired by the creators of Netflix. And the idea was the same way they created a subscription service for Netflix was to create a subscription service for the movies. And they give you this card and you can watch as many movies as you want. I think there's a limit of one. Is there one a day? Is it one a day? I don't know. Somebody's going to send me a note about it. Basically, you can, in a month, if you want to watch 30 movies in a month, you can go to the movies every single day and pay one price. And I think it's about somewhere around $20. And they send you this card and they have a group of theaters that they're working with that have this subscription service. And for many people, it's worth it. You may see one or two movies a month, and the price that you will pay for the subscription service in two visits to the movies if you go to the movies. Now, what happened with MoviePass is they overpromised and then they underdelivered. And I wonder how their promise was connected to their vision. They overpromised and they underdelivered. How did they overpromise? They said once you signed up for MoviePass, you would have your cards, your card to give you access to the movies that you would take to the movie theater, and they wouldn't charge you because you have this subscription service. They would have that card to you in about 10 days. Well, months have passed and several people have not received their cards, and they're upset because they want to begin taking advantage of this program. And I was reading an article about this MoviePass challenge, and they said, we did not anticipate the response that we got from the marketplace, from the population of people buying into this program. And we weren't able to keep up with the demand. And then the people who manufacture the cards for us, we only got one processing company, and they're behind, they're backlogged. So we got to try to get up to speed, and hopefully our customers will be satisfied after we work out the kinks. And it's just a reminder to us to be careful of over-promising and under-delivering. And when you're creating and casting a compelling vision and trying to get people on board, especially for your organization, make sure to set goals, set realistic goals, set tangible goals, set goals that stretch you. But you only have so many times to over-promise and under-deliver before people write you off and they head off in another direction. We do that with ourselves a lot of times. We set sometimes these audacious goals and we overpromise and we underdeliver, and we don't develop the mechanisms. We don't develop the support. We don't develop the strategy. We don't develop the system to help us reach the goals that we were trying to reach. So be careful. Ask yourself, where are the areas of your life that you are overpromising and under-delivering, and make a change in those areas. Hey, that's all I got for this episode of the Leading While Green podcast. Leave me a review on iTunes. I really appreciate it. Check out the Revision Conference, revision2017.eventbrite.com, as we help you dream, imagine, and plan again. Until next time, take care and God bless.